instruction, golf news, equipment, travel, interviews, course profiles, and more. Your weekly fix of all things golf is about to begin. It's the Flagstick Podcast with your hosts, Jeff Botter and Scott McLeod. All right, welcome to the Flagstick Podcast. I am Jeff Botter. This guy is Scott McLeod. And we're ready for another week of talking golf with you. Sponsored this week again by Cobra Golf's new King Tech X, and King Tech X1 length irons designed for a wide variety of handicaps. The King Tech and King Tech X irons deliver ultimate combination of performance, precision, power, and forgiveness in every swing. Find a local retailer or local fitter today for a better ball striking experience. Visit cobragolf.ca to learn more. You can also visit cobragolf.ca to learn more about some of their other new offerings
which now. We'll be talking about a little bit later.
Yes, too. Exactly. As always, make sure you're following us across all social media networks, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Please subscribe to us on Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. And we obviously encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us, and click that notification bell, and make sure that you never miss a single episode of this show or any other great stuff that we put up on our YouTube channel. And contests are coming too as the season progresses.
Oh, are they?
Forward. Oh, yes.
Oh, tell.
We have some goodies in the office from some of our partners, and we'll get into some of the details of some of that on another episode.
Oh, boo.
Sorry. The big letdown has occurred. I'm sorry.
And I don't know details, so people don't DM me.
Yeah, don't DM Scott. Don't DM me either. So I'm not giving you any details till next week.
All right. We'll have to tune in.
Exactly. All right. This week, we're going to a little less small talk this week between Scott and I before we get into the show, because we just spent about half an hour just chatting before we came on air. So we've kind of exhausted all of the week that was small talk. So let's get into the show a little bit. This week, we're going to dig into the win by Nick Taylor at the SONY Open.
Yeah.
And we talk a little bit more TGL, because I know that's kind of still kind of a hot topic, and I do want to talk about it because my opinion might have changed a little bit.
I think a few people's opinion.
I think so. I really do. On the back end, we're going to explore some of the product introductions, as we're just a little bit ahead of the PGA Merchandise Show in Orlando.
Next week.
That means that a lot of companies are releasing new product, and
my fingers
a lot. When I say
out.
a lot, go to flagstick.com and check out Product Watch posts.
Oh boy,
there's a multitude of Product Watch posts happening, to the point where the Flagstick Digest newsletter almost just exclusively has Product Watch. So that's how many products there actually been released right now. So, but there's a ton, and there's some good stuff.
Insane.
So we'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But first, we have to get to the front nine, presented by Metcalf Golf Club. A natural setting, a pleasant challenge. Golf season really isn't that far off. Look outside. It's not that far off. It is time that you need to start thinking about the season ahead.
Yes.
And Golf at Metcalf Golf Club is a perfect place for you to start. Become a member, join one of their leagues, participate in an event, save some money on golf with their very popular game passes. Visit metcalfgolf.com to purchase game passes or to learn more about memberships and such.
When you talk about that equipment stuff, I mean, we're going to get to it at the end, but I am breathing a sigh of relief because I think we're about a week away from the end of what I call NDA season. I've been under non-disclosure agreements since
embargoes
since last September. I think this is the longest NDA season ever. Like, literally, there was product that came out this week that I tested last September and was sworn to secrecy about.
What sucks is that you have these NDAs and these embargoes, but yet all of these products products that you're waiting to release information on. Yeah, they've all the information and the pictures of these products has been released by so many different
the photos get out.
Outlets, we'll call them.
Yeah, exactly. And the photos get out there is the biggest thing. Just what doesn't get out there is sort of the details and some of the tech. And there's a few other products that the companies will release a little bit later. But yeah, we'll get into that on the back nine a little bit more.
Exactly. Okay. SONY Open. Here's the thing with Nick Taylor.
Okay.
Dude has a flair for the dramatic.
Oh, big
There's no
time.
question about that. He had, for those that watched the Sony Open,
Yeah. Yeah.
For those that didn't watch the Sony Open and just caught the highlights, maybe and for those that didn't watch it that are just listening to this podcast to find out information about golf, which is probably the smartest thing you ever did, um, this guy had the opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to win
Yeah.
twice
Yeah.
before he got to the 18th hole. He had
Yeah.
two birdie putts inside 4 feet
Yeah.
and missed them both.
Yeah. The ones on 15, 16.
And then he chips in from like ridiculous land on 18, much the same as the 700-foot putt that he made at the Canadian Open to win.
Yeah.
And he gets into a playoff. And then how long was the putt that he made to win in the second playoff hole?
It wasn't that long, but I mean,
but no, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Is that it was inside 4 feet.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So he missed two putts inside 4 feet that would have essentially closed the door. He would have, either got into the playoff. Well, he would have got him into the playoff.
Correct.
Because they were birdies, because it was an eagle chip on 18. So he would have got into the playoff before the dramatics on 18, but he needed the dramatics on 18 to get into the playoff. And then he makes a putt on the second playoff hole from the same length, inside the same length as the two that he missed to win the tournament. Like, that's just a lot of drama.
And equally dramatic. I mean, obviously that was, the conclusion aspect of it or whatever, but, he was 1 over after 7 holes, then made 4 birdies in a row. Like, he looked like he was dead to rights because, I was looking at the leaderboard and I was like, do I turn it on? Do I have a look?
Yeah.
I know Nick's in contention, but then all of a sudden, oh, okay, JJ Spawn is going nuts and
where did JJ Spawn go?
I know, and Stefan Jaeger. Well, that was our part of it.
Echeverria all of a sudden is like,
yeah, what? And he was playing with Nick Taylor, so they were like rising up, and Jaeger and Spawn were like floundering down the end, and it's like I was literally saying to my wife, I'm like, I don't know where Nick will be or whatever. And, he's like 5th and I see him drop down a bit. And I'm like, oh, he's going to have a hard time kind of winning this one or whatever. Because I always think about this. So people don't, maybe they realize it, maybe they don't. But if you're a Canadian golf journalist and on Sunday night, you have a Canadian that's in contention, we have to pay attention for multiple reasons. One of them is the fact that that you're going to have a couple hours more work that night right away, because obviously we have an obligation to our audience to produce content relative to, they get a win. It's pretty significant. A little different if a player finishes the top 10, people are not all that interested or whatever, but as soon as Nick wins, there's obviously, a media obligation that they have. They had another press conference here on Tuesday with him to kind of follow up because it was, late in Hawaii or whatever, but he does a press conference afterwards, got to write a story, get that posted, get that up and whatever. So, it's good and bad. You like to be staying up to write, this type of thing, but you also know, all right, am I doing extra work? Am I not doing extra work? Whatever. But I was happy to do the extra work. But yeah, the fact that he was 1 over and he knew it, he felt sort of down a little bit, and then kind of got on that birdie streak. And dramatic. I mean, that's his 3rd playoff win in his last 3 wins. That's his fifth win on the PGA Tour. As you mentioned, that RBC Canadian Open, making that 72-footer. I mean, not many people are ever going to forget that one, but that was the 4th playoff hole. And then last year at the WM Phoenix Open, that was on the second 2-hole playoff as well. So this is a guy that's played, 8 playoff holes, and now he's 3-0 in playoffs on the PGA Tour. As one other Canadian pro said to me and was texting me at the time, he said, this guy is a dog. That's what he's at. He's just, and I think it was neat. One of the things that Nick had said on Tuesday during his press conference was, he said a lot of times when he's playing the tournament, it's really easy for his mind to project ahead. He gets into a back 9, you're thinking ahead, what's going to happen? Where's my opportunities? Hopefully I hit a good shot, whatever. And he said that he never has that mindset when he gets to a playoff. He just doesn't, you don't have a choice. You win or you don't win. That's it.
Yeah.
You've already done well. So you sort of got nothing to lose. So you don't project ahead because you can't. And now he's like, now I got to figure out how I can bring that mindset to just regular tournament play, which he's not even sure it's even possible to do because there's so many other circumstances that can happen versus win, don't win. But, you almost have to put that in your mind of like, okay, I'm just going to go out there and play and not worry about the outcome as much, which is really what he did kind of in the playoffs. So yeah, it was good to see.
Well, it's kind of indicative of sport in general. What he's talking about, because if you're playing a tennis match or you're playing a football game or you're playing a hockey game,
yeah,
and you play in 3 periods, well, you have a game plan,
right?
And you're looking at the holes that you can attack. In football, you're looking at the opportunities that you get depending on your field position and things like that. But if you get into an overtime situation or a playoff situation, well, now it's next goal wins, next touchdown wins, next point wins. And in golf, you're looking at there's only one hole. There
Right.
isn't the well, I can make par here and then get the birdie on the par 5 coming up. There is no par 5 coming up because it could be over right now. So you've got to make the birdie now.
It's the here and now.
Exactly. So I think from what he's talking about makes total sense, that it's very easy when you tee it off on the first hole to have a mindset or a game plan of what you want to do as the round goes on, and you kind of change things depending on where you make your bogeys and your birdies early on. But when you get to a playoff, there's no plan. The plan is to make birdie, because birdie is probably the only thing that's going to win. Or if your opponent's in trouble, it's okay, well, now I need to do this. I don't need to make birdie. I need to make par. Or I need to make bogey. Like it's
right.
So I don't.
I mean, Chris Hadfield, the Canadian astronaut, said that sort of the same thing. When you're in space, one of the things that you do is you're like, the only thing that matters is whatever's going to happen in the next 30 seconds. I mean, you just have to have that level of focus, because you can't do anything about, the past. You can't do anything about the future. You got to take care of what's happening right now. So, it's great for him. I mean, like I said, with 5 wins now, he becomes the 3rd ranked Canadian for PGA Tour wins. I mean, Newton and Weir had 8 each, and he doesn't seem to be slowing down at age 36.
No.
I think he's in a good position for a number of things. I think we'll talk about more equipment later on, but I think a lot of people can look to his golf bag to see some neat things as well. I mean, he plays with a 2 generations old Titleist driver. He plays with last year's TaylorMade fairway wood. He's got a mix of stuff in there. He's got a TaylorMade putter that he's loved. I posted that video multiple times of hanging out at the Kingdom when he was with TaylorMade, and him just rolling the putts. It was fun to sit there and watch him roll putts. He's just such a great guy that you can definitely cheer for. But the fact that he's got a mutt of a golf bag that really is designed to go, what, this is what I need. He has some contracts with Titleist and stuff like that, but it's not like a full bag deal or whatever. He obviously has a mix of everything because it works. And that's sort of like him. He's just gritty and workmanlike, and he's got himself to 29th in the world rankings as of this week, which is fabulous. He's a guy who was a number 1 amateur in the world at one point. So it's not like he's been an unknown quantity. It's just he's had a rough go in the last little while. He hadn't had a top 10 since his last win individually. He had a T10 at the Zurich in a partners event, but he was very emotional at the end of the round and talking about the fact that kind of everybody stuck with him, and he was kind of working away, and even it wasn't his best. And I know he was disappointed last year. Obviously, he was hoping for a good year and that he was going to make that President's Cup team. That was a big disappointment. Now, a lot of people, I heard a few people afterwards this week go, "Oh, he should have been on that team," or whatever. Well, not at the time.
Not at the time. He shouldn't have been. No,
he certainly shouldn't have been, or whatever. And if you look at his skills and stuff like that, there was other things that could happen with the other players that made them more suitable at the time or whatever. But he certainly gets himself into some nice conversations now as far as the leading Canadian, especially with 3 wins in 3 years. That does not happen. I mean, you just don't win every single year on the PGA Tour. It's definitely.
No, I think that's kind of the same deal that people get on Brooke about. It's like the expectation, because you did something, then the expectation is that you can continue to do it, and you don't take into account the factors. The biggest factor that keeps somebody from winning on a regular basis is the 100 and some odd other players
in
the field that are just as good as you are.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. So people can say, well, what about Scheffler? Well, Scheffler's an anomaly. Nelly Corda last year
Right.
was an
Yeah.
anomaly.
Outliers. Yeah.
It happens. Every once in a while, you get a player that's just so consistent week
Yeah.
after week after week that they're in contention, and that gives them a better chance of winning week after week after week. But for the most part,
it's rare.
It's very rare that you're going to get a multiple back to back to back winners or something on the any professional tour. It's just, and
Well,
what they have 30 plus events that they play over the course of the year.
Over 40, and
so over 40
most
events.
players,
Well, most of the time it's
yeah.
it's different winners.
Yeah.
It's very seldom is it multiple winners every single year. A little bit here and there, but I mean,
yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to win multiple times in a year. Now he's in a position to. You start in January, and get that win, and he's got a chance to go back to the Masters. He knows himself. He hasn't performed very well in the majors. He's hoping maybe he can change that, and let's hope so too. But speaking of players that are consistent all time in their career, obviously one would be Mr. Tiger Woods, and he obviously was a big part of the TGL story this week. So why don't we get into that?
That was nice to. I mean, I love the fact that they did not debut Tiger and Rory as some spectacle in the first one. Because they were already going to get the eyeballs anyway.
Correct.
So there was no reason to use that marketing tool in week one.
No, in week two, save that bullet.
Exactly. So they roll them out in week two. They got the big Eye of the Tiger entrance for him with the way too much friggin' smoke. I thought he was probably going to pass out from all the smoke. That seemed to go on forever.
That could have been funny.
Eventually, he walks out, and it's the larger-than-life Tiger Woods coming out onto the floor of the TGL at the SoFi Center. And
you're then, like thinking, here we go.
Then his team laid the biggest friggin' egg, and looked like at times looked like the average Joe amateur golfer playing sim golf. Like honestly, okay, look, these are all opinions. Okay, so anybody can have their opinion about what they saw.
And there's lots online.
And I'm sure there is.
Just searching through a few of them.
Personally, I didn't watch it all this week.
Okay.
I watched it all last week, start to finish. Even when it was a blowout, I wanted to see how does this all work with the hammer and all this stuff, and can they get So I watched.
So your curiosity was the format.
Yes, I wanted to see it all, figure it right to the end, see how they did it. They say that they played to the end because potentially the points could matter for tiebreakers and stuff. So okay, fine. This week. I don't think I got past Tiger's match against Justin Rose, like their 2-hole thing. Like I had a hard time even getting to that before I turned it off. It was just really slow.
It was weird.
Yeah,
the first week seemed like fast paced. And something was off on the. I mean, there was a few things that we'll get into, but I mean, something seemed different. I don't know what it was. Maybe there wasn't as much giddiness. There seemed to be a few chuckles here and there. Obviously, they have got certain players in there for chuck. I think there was a lot of anticipation for Tiger. I mean, first, if we look at
Kisner.
How he looked, yes, and we'll get
everybody was talking about,
and I think Tiger's was like, although it was interesting because one person said, here's a guy who never said a thing, didn't do much for 20 plus years on the tour, and was all of a sudden trying to chuck it up and seem more like the boys and stuff, and maybe that's just perception for people or whatever. Did his swing look good, terrible, or otherwise? This is a pretty hard place to judge it. I mean, I still think of this more now as a game show. I still think of it, I look at it at that because I think now as you start to see some things with the technology and stuff that we'll get to, I think that's what you have to look at. It's golf entertainment. It's not a golf tournament. It's golf adjacent. And I think if you look at it from that lens, it won't disappoint you that much. But I think our expectations sort of set us up to disappoint us because we're like, okay, Kisner, awesome. Looking forward to have his chirping. It's pretty hard to chirp when you're sculling balls out of bunkers.
And basically hitting multiple bad shots. I mean, it wasn't the bunker shot was just a comic relief.
I mean, even
Uh,
he knew he was asking Charlie to sub in for him at one point. He's like, "Hey, Charlie, do you want to come play?" And I mean, he wouldn't have been wrong. Maybe during the timeout, they can like dig around the crowd and find another player or something like that and
well, they
do a
have
little
four on
sub.
their team, right? But only three
Right.
are designated to play each week. I mean,
Yeah.
all the talk was about Kisner's chirping, his digs, his like,
Mm.
and I got none of that.
Yeah.
I got more of that
Yeah.
by his own players digging at him for how
Him.
bad he was playing, because Homa was
Yeah.
going after him
Oh
for
God. Yeah.
and so was Tiger. Like
Yeah.
I felt the other
Justifiably.
group, there was hardly any chirping at all going on.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot.
This is so I am not, when I'm about to say, I am not knocking the sport that I'm about to compare what I just watched to, because I like watching this sport, but it reminded me of curling. But it did, because
So
curling is very slow.
yeah, sure.
Like there's a lot of like the
Yeah, the
where
waiting,
they're
figuring
lining
out the
things up and
shots.
figuring
Yeah.
out the shot and figuring
Yeah.
out, the worst case scenario is the best. Like do this and do that, and there's all this
Yeah.
planning going on,
Yeah.
and then they execute the shot,
Yeah.
and then it's loud for like that 10 seconds where they're hitting that shot, and
Sure.
then it goes
Yeah.
back to this talking between the people.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking back and forth. It's very quiet, and you
Mm-hmm.
hear the dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
and then they execute the shot and it gets loud.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this was like. There was a lot of dialogue about what shot to hit, where to do this, where to aim it,
Mm-hmm.
blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then they execute the shot, and while they're executing the shot, the music's going, the crowd is chucking, and then it goes sort of quiet again, and then they start talking back and
Yeah.
forth. It's like, I don't. I'm
I
sorry, but
you know,
that's not what I want to see. It
no,
really isn't.
but I think part of that is not on the event itself. I think it has to do with the actual TV production of the event.
Because
So
that's what they want, though. They want people to listen to those conversations.
true, but it's what they cut away to and how they cut away. And I get it; it's a live event; it's not a produced event afterwards. So the comparison I'm going about to make is slightly different, but it is an example. So last night I took the time to watch the good guys. They did a match at TGL. They split into two groups and had six guys, and they played it. Obviously produced afterwards. They can edit it and so forth, but the camera cuts, the conversation, every way they went about it was a little bit more integrated, closer up cameras. I mean, these are not even, the tour pros, but it was a better production as far as how they did it. And I think that is part of the appeal, and that's part of the impression that we get. It's how they produce it and stuff as well. So, and again, I don't know how much time they're going to have to kind of keep up on that. They've got the advantage of obviously having massive resources to be, it's great. They did the replay for the Kisner shot and showed every possible angle of, Tiger and Homa losing it over that. That was great. But, there's other things I think that would maybe not have the pauses. So they're going to have to figure out what to do in the production so that they don't have as many of those quiet moments to keep, the audience engaged. And I have to say, last week I was talking about players, possibly hitting an errant shot and having a disaster.
There you go.
If that flagstick wasn't there, Kisner might have really hurt a spectator. He might have killed someone. I mean, that's the thing. You're playing inside an arena. I mean, I've seen enough bad shots inside, a small case of a simulator, but this is a, when you're at a private simulator, you don't have 1,500 people.
Well, they might end up having to put netting up.
They might have to. I
mean, they do for a hockey game. So, I mean,
yeah,
there's netting around. I know
they probably don't want
to,
because they're obviously trying to have that immersive experience. But man, if Kisner just keeps going on this, who knows? And you know what? It can happen for anyone. And here, let's get into the other thing. Let's talk a little bit about some of the shots and stuff. We obviously saw, here's the thing. Tiger Woods is an endorser for Full Swing Golf Simulators, right? So that's part of the mix. They've got them doing that. Now, we don't have full details on what technology they're using within that to do the tracking and whatever. Full Swing has a number of different products and stuff like that. And I'm not here just to crap on a particular company, but we have to realize, as part of the game show type environment, this is a simulator. They are computers. They're not always as accurate as they can be. And if you look at they show a bank of Full Swing kit monitors on the backside. I don't know if they're doing anything or not, because the way they're set up, that doesn't really make sense. But whatever the case, we obviously saw Tiger have some erroneous shots. We saw players sort of biting their tongue when they saw some of the outcomes, shots that would normally maybe they felt were going to the right and all of a sudden were going left. So there was some certain aspects there that, it's hard to have a competition if the players, what they're doing, it'd be like throwing a football and it's going to the receiver, but all of a sudden, for some reason, the ball goes the other way for not something, I'm not saying wind or whatever, but just because, the simulator moves it one way or the other.
Well, the technology with some of these, full swing's not exactly the top end of golf simulators out there either, as far as being able to track. When you look at on the PGA Tour and the LPGA Tour and so on, they're using Top Tracer or TrackMan, So if that's what they're using at the highest levels of golf to track the ball, then that's obviously that's probably what they should be using for this, but they're not because of the relationship that Tiger has with Full Swing. So
exactly, which is I think is going to hurt Full Swing, and I've seen these comments online, especially within some of the technology forums and stuff like this. The people that have experimented with certain products or whatever, they're like, man, this while it looks good for marketing, once people figure some of this stuff out, and if they start to blame that aspect of it, it might not be so good for a Full Swing from a marketing standpoint. Maybe much as they try to frame it and whatever. So it was a blowout. We didn't, as I said, there's some great results for Justin Rose was sinking a lot of putts, but a 12-1 win.
Ooh, how does that get you? How does that keep you interested in
the competitiveness
from start to finish? It's 2 hours of
Yeah, and it was more than 2 hours because the match extended and they actually switched it over to another channel.
Yeah.
Like in the States, they had to switch it over to ESPN News because it ran late, and I'm glad they stuck with it. I'll give them credit. Sportsnet stuck with it in Canada. ESPN stuck with it in the States. But yes, we can have the entertainment aspect, but the competition aspect, sort of, you want that to be there as well. And if we're going to, and it's hard to explain why you would get a 12-1 win. Like it really is, but it just happens. So I'm sure they're hoping for it too, that we're going to see something that's better, but yeah, they've got to do something. The other one that I should say, from a technical glitch and not just a beat on the launch monitors or whatever, they're going to have to figure out something with that bunker cam, because they cannot get the white balance right on that camera. So every time when they go to that bunker cam, because they got that Augusta white sand, it can't get its white balance, and you get these weird,
glitchy looking images.
And it's clearly a white balance issue from that camera that's there. So they're going to have to figure that out from a technical standpoint. I know in the first week there was one, it looked like they were like brown and something. I don't know what was going on there. And again, live TV, things are bound to go sideways, but they've got to find some ways to kind of mitigate that as much as possible. So
one of the things that I would say about the points, the fact that the 12-1 stuff, sure. I think the use and the rule that they have in place with respect to the hammer, is part of their problem, because if I throw the hammer and I throw it on a tee shot, so before the hole is played,
and they have to accept it,
then they have to accept it. And but if I throw it in the middle of the match before a shot is played, I don't have to accept it. But if I don't accept it, I lose the hole. Like I lose the point. That doesn't make any sense. Why should I have to accept it? When I know that I'm going to lose 2 points,
right? Or a point, or whatever.
Or I'm going to lose a point. Like I'm either going to lose 2 points or gain 2 points, or I'm going to say no and I'm going to lose the point altogether. Like it doesn't make any sense throwing it.
And there's the hard part. You're in the middle of a run of weeks. You can't change that. So you know what I mean?
So that's when you look at the points. I was like looking at the points from the last match. There was a lot of 2 and 3 point holes.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Because you
so they add up.
Yeah, and that's how you get your scores out of whack. You shouldn't. The hammer should be something that maybe is only able to be thrown later in the match when you're down as a way, or you're only allowed to throw it each team gets a hammer,
Hmm.
um, for,
Right.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. As
and
opposed to
they can throw it
constantly
at any
happening.
time during them. It doesn't go. You don't throw it and then the other team can get it back and throw it, and because it's like one hammer per team per
Yeah,
grouping of
it's
things.
playing a larger part in the scoring in a different way than they
Yeah.
probably expected, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
because they can be thrown multiple times. Teams are going to throw it when they're way behind, and then they lose again, and they get further behind. So
yeah, yeah,
you should only be able to maybe throw it once, kind
yeah.
of
So there's a
thing.
certain amount of risk, and that might look fine when you're playing with your buddies, and that makes a difference in the money. But when it becomes points for this, that
Hmm.
becomes a little bit more difficult that way. So
Yeah.
interesting. Now the next match is going to be January 21st, and Atlanta is
Hmm.
going to make their debut against New York. So we're gonna possibly see Cantley. Oh boy, oh boy, is he going to play fast? JT, Billy Horschel, Lucas Glover.
I'm looking
Um,
forward to the first time somebody goes over the shot clock.
yeah, I mean, what is the penalty for that? Is it a stroke or is it
I
like
don't
what is it?
know. I don't
I
know.
never, that was one thing that was one in that discussion in that good video last night, but it never got sort of explained what it would be. Uh,
Curious.
yeah. And I mean, yeah, the only other rule that I saw last night that I didn't know is if they play out of turn or whatever, it's a penalty stroke. So I'm assuming, I mean, somebody will probably know, and we can look it up afterwards or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I don't know. So now TV numbers, they were 919,000 on ESPN sustained with 1.1 million peak in the first week in the United States. They went up a small percentage. They went up to a million, sustained, but it was still, the peak was still 1.1 million. So I mean, are your eyeballs going to be part of? I mean, yes, we're in Canada and it's a different number or whatever, but how much are you going to still be watching next week?
I'm going to continue. I mean, I'll keep tuning in
Are
and
you
sort of.
now? Are you turning in because it feels like an obligation as a media member, or
No,
are you tuning in because you're actually
I
interested?
feel no obligation as a media member to
Okay,
watch
fair enough.
anything golf related. If I don't want to watch it, if it doesn't interest me, I'm not going to
Sure.
watch it.
Okay.
No, I'm tuning in because I haven't seen all the teams play yet.
Right.
I'm tuning in to see if it kind of if they fix things, if they kind of. I just want to see how it
See if it
progresses. So,
evolves. Yeah.
but I'll
Yeah.
watch it,
Right.
and if it's not if it's not interesting me, if it's not progressing week to week like I'm hoping
Then
that it
it'll
will, then
slowly.
I just keep turning it off sooner and sooner every week. So I'll start watching
Right.
it,
Yeah.
and then if I'm not interested, then I'll stop watching it and move on to reruns of Criminal Minds. Which I've seen probably every
Yeah.
episode for 15 seasons, but I keep going back to them because it's more interesting than what I just watched.
Well, the other thing that someone mentioned too, and I mean, I guess you could DVR it and stuff like that, but it's unfortunate that maybe, from an audience, from a viewing perspective, is that they don't have this on a streaming service in a way like a Netflix or whatever, where you could
Mm,
actually go and catch up or whatever. But again, it's stuff that's done live, so they can only have up what they've done. But again, it's something new.
yeah,
I'd still say it's a cool golf adjacent thing, but again, I treat it now as a game show. I think that people that are looking at it as some sort of serious competition are
no,
maybe realizing that's not really the case. And
no,
but that's not a bad thing. We have enough of that already in
yeah,
in golf. So it's just yeah. So but we'll see how a player like Cantley and yeah, we'll see how much chirping. I mean, this is going to be an interesting next match. I mean, we've got Fitzpatrick, Fowler, Shoffley, and Young versus Cantley, Glover, Horschel, and Thomas. So if you look at it from engaging personalities and stuff, I mean, I think Horschel and Thomas will carry the load as far as, personality wise on the Atlanta. I mean, hey, who knows? Maybe Patrick Cantley will surprise us. I
hmm.
don't think so.
Also
Um,
depends on who's
and
not playing too, right? Because only
right,
three of the four play.
right, exactly. And then we've already seen the New York team play, so yeah, we'll see what this kind of amounts to and what they can sort of mold it into, and
Exactly.
hopefully at least if the personalities don't rise, maybe the competition will.
There you go. That would be the hope.
Yeah.
That'd be the hope. All right. Well, we will continue the TGL conversation probably next week, and
No
we'll
doubt.
probably continue throwing a little bit of it in here and there as we continue to find out if it is going to get better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, we'll leave it there. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to dig into the equipment world and what's
Yeah.
been going on ahead of this year's PGA Merchandise Show in Orlando. So you don't want to miss the back nine. Stay with us. You are listening and watching the Flagstick podcast with Jeff Potter and Scott McLeod. We'll be right back. Cobra Golf's new King Tech X, and King Tech X1 length irons designed for a wide variety of handicaps. The King Tech and Tech X irons deliver the ultimate combination of performance, precision, power, and forgiveness in every swing. Find a local fitter today for a better ball striking experience. Visit cobragolf.ca to learn more. Alrighty, well, welcome back to the Flagstick podcast with Jeff Potter and Scott McLeod. And as promised, we're going to get into some gear equipment discussion here on the back nine, presented by Celtic Golf Center. Now with two awesome locations, Kempville and the brand new Kingston location, featuring multiple state-of-the-art TrackMan sims. Your golf season never has to end. Enjoy a round of golf with friends, join one of the many leagues, get fit for some new equipment, or take a lesson. Celtic Golf Centers have got you covered because it really is all about the golf. Visit CelticGolfCenter.com to learn more, book tee times, or to sign up for leagues. So there you go. A little different kind of indoor golf than what the TGL has been promoting. Before we get into the equipment talk, I just wanted to say,
sure.
One of the things that I always found, and we talked about this yesterday off the air, obviously. One of the things about sim golf that is the contrast, right? So when you go into a place like Celtic Golf Center, or you go into some of these simulator indoor golf sim places, it's dark.
Oh yeah.
So the colors off the screen are just everything pops more. The turf that you're hitting off of, you're in a dark area, but it's lit where you're hitting, and it's like the screen, like everything just seems clearer. You're closer to the screen, obviously. So the screen, transition of ball to screen happens faster. Right. That's one of the other things about the TGL that I've kind of grown not to like. It's just so bright that you're standing, you can't see really what's on the screen.
Yeah,
as well
until they cut to
the screen close-ups, and then you can see it fine. But if you're in there, maybe it's clearer when you're in there. I don't know, but almost everything, they tried to make everything about it being so big.
Right.
Like everything, like grandiose. Look at the size of this thing. It's like you're outside.
I think they had to make it big so they didn't miss the screen from the
distance. There's that. But maybe they didn't need to be so far back, and maybe the screen didn't need to be so big. Maybe the screen could have been half that size. And it could have been like, I don't know. I mean, I just say it because I think
maybe some of that was the blend of the technology as well, because I think they're trying to get a little bit more accuracy with a little bit more ball flight, so that you can calculate some spin calculations and stuff like that. So there could be lots of things in there, but I agree, it doesn't feel as immersive. So
it doesn't feel like sim golf. It feels like outdoor golf in a net, like in a screen. Like it just doesn't feel the same. Now that I've watched it a couple of times, I know, like, we'll just we'll keep watching and giving it the benefit of the doubt for now. Let it grow, let it
breathe,
let the mold grow a little bit more before we decide that we need to get out of the house. All right, so back nine. So here's the thing with product launches. This is generally, we always kind of look at this as sort of the silly season of product releases and product launches. It's not quite the same as it used to be. Where everything was held back until right before the PGA Merchandise Show. Everything was unveiled there. It was, which made being there way more important than it is now.
Definitely. Yeah.
Now, a lot of stuff is released. It's still a gong show as far as, the plethora of products being released now, but it's not like it was, but it's still a bit of a gong show. So everybody's releasing something, it seems, ahead of the PGA show.
A lot of it now is due to the cycle of the tours, right? I mean, new contracts with players, getting equipment in their bags. So, but we saw that even at the end of the year, whether it's the Grant Thornton, those events, there was still some product that obviously showed up on the USGA conforming list and then was put into play, whereas we might not have seen that before. But yes, now it's still, we'll call it more of a month-long release, but it doesn't mean it's any less intense. And talking to some other people who specialize in equipment content as well, they're in the same boat. It's just you're trying to feel like you're paddling upstream the whole time. Yeah. And you can only apologize so much to kind of the companies as far as the pace that you get stuff out there, because you don't want to just talk about the release. You want to actually give some educated opinions about the equipment. So you want to make sure, and this is our responsibility to our audience, is to make sure that when you're doing stuff, you just don't give them the facts they can get anywheres. It's your experience in there that they're asking for, like, how does that compare to this? And how does that compare to that? Because you're not going to get that solely from the stream from the manufacturer. They're just going to talk about their product and say it's good, but they're operating in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. They also, they're also looking at it going, oh, we haven't talked about this. Yeah, but I got 6 other products that are coming out and I can't sit there and inundate everybody with everything. Mm-hmm. You sort of have to time that releases, make the content a little better and so forth. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't know where to start, but I think, talking about overall trends is probably a good place.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the first, I can say one of the first, but early on, we talked about the release of the DS Adapt woods and irons, and we talked about from Cobra Golf, and we talked about the level of adjustment that would be able to be made, which kind of comes into the whole fitting side of things, where you can literally, when you've got a product like that, the multitude of possibilities for adjusting the equipment to fit the player is just increased exponentially. And I think that maybe that's a good place to start, is with the fitting side of things in that particular product specifically. Is that something that is unique to that product? Is that something that is becoming a trend within the other products in the same category?
I think that adjustable hosel itself is pretty unique. I think what we are seeing in sort of the same vein is that, what Cobra is trying to do there is they're trying to create, within their 4 drivers that they have, and then the adjustable hosel, movable weighting, it's very much the trend within the manufacturers is, let's realize that the golfers vary by a lot. They vary a lot, not by just their index, but they vary by a lot by their club delivery, what they're trying to achieve and so forth. So they need to provide more from a fitting perspective so that they can fine tune it a little bit better to get maybe a competitive edge. Because, there might be a case in the past where somebody like, I'd like to play that driver, but I can't quite get it in that lie angle. Maybe it's a hybrid, which are known to be a little bit more upright, draw biased. Some people are like, man, I really like the look of that product. I like the sound of it. I like that brand, but I'm not on the PGA Tour and I can't get it bent in the tour truck. I need something at a different lie angle, whatever. So I think that's where manufacturers are going. And we're also seeing, I'd say, a wider spread. So most manufacturers will come out with 3 to 4 drivers within, some different models, but even within those models, they're spreading them further apart so that, the low spin driver is even lower spin and the draw bias driver is even more draw bias. So there can be a greater separation between them, so that you can cover off more players. So I think that's one of the biggest things right away. And I think overall, without getting totally into, talking pricing and stuff like that, but as people look to invest in their equipment and realize that, they can keep stuff in their bag a little bit more longer term, they want to make sure that it's dialed in. It's no different than, a skate or any other piece of type of thing. When you get it just perfect, you just love it that way, and you want to leave it that way. So I think this is the opportunity, or we're seeing greater opportunities to get it just perfect, where we didn't have that. In the 1990s, we'd have persimmon and we'd like shaving the face to get the, it's open this much, and oh, this driver doesn't work, we'd have to go get another driver, or this one doesn't launch. Well, now we have that flexibility within a club in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And I think consumers are getting a little bit more educated as well. So, it used to be always set it and forget it. General consumer might still be that way, but we're also now seeing, I see more consumers than ever. They know their fitting charts. They know how to go about, making a change. They know that, hey, you know what? I'm playing a golf course where I need a little bit more carry, or maybe I'm delivering a little bit less loft. I need to change that or whatever. So they're getting smarter as well. So we have to credit that to them. And yeah, that's definitely the trend as far as fit. And it's not just drivers; it's across the board in all sorts of different clubs. So
Right. Now we are also noticing a trend in that the price of some of these new products is continuing to rise as well. Now this is
yeah,
like we can comment that that maybe the price of the equipment is getting to the point where it's almost too expensive for the average person to afford. I
never
don't think
never
I don't
seems to
think
be.
that's it's
No, that's
always
not
going
where
to
we're going.
go. It's
Yeah.
always going to go up.
Sure, if you want the technology and you
Yeah,
want the
exactly.
innovation and whatever, the prices are going to go up. It doesn't mean you have to buy it right away.
No,
No,
no, but you could
but
wait, if you wanted to, you can hold off. You
yeah, and
can,
you also, yeah, you don't have to buy them every year. Nobody's ever said that
no,
you have to.
no. Um, but one of the other things that we've noticed a trend in is with respect to irons.
Mm-hmm.
We're noticing that the center of gravity
Mm-hmm.
in the irons is being positioned in such a way that it's helping to optimize the launch. So in other words, get the ball airborne quicker and get the ball up higher,
Yeah,
so that
for the longer irons,
yeah,
yeah,
for the longer
and the
irons, because
opposite for shorter irons, yeah.
exactly. So we're seeing a trend in that as well. And is there any products that are coming out that kind of really do emphasize that?
Oh, there's multiple ones. I mean, I look at the Ping G440 irons for an example. It's sort of their stock main iron, and you're looking at really low CG in there, and people should understand that that center of gravity makes a big difference, not only from a launching, it really affects the spin as well, and that's where
Yeah.
it's going to carry over. And we'll talk a little bit about what it does in the driver. I mean, the more that you get those strikes a little higher above that center of gravity, it actually reduces the spin. So that combination of higher launch and lower spin will definitely kind of help out that golfer that's really struggling. Maybe they've got low speed, and they need to get that they need to get that launch. They need to have a little bit lower spin because they deliver a lot of loft, because loft plays a role in spin. They're just getting easier that way, and to the point of there's a lot of players that are good players, and you look out on tour. These are some of the best players in the world, and you see the low CG, what would be the game improvement clubs are creeping into their bags because they're like, man, these things are easy to hit. I mean, I know for myself, I put a 7-wood in my bag last year, and
Mm-hmm.
it's probably the best choice that I've made in years as far as a club is concerned. And we're seeing that a lot in drivers this year. A lot of manufacturers are realizing that moving that CG down can have greater benefits even in their good player clubs. And even TaylorMade bills it as their area of opportunity, because basically what happens is you lower that CG by even just a few millimeters, all those strikes that you're going to have above that are going to be a little bit lower spin, but at the same time it's going to launch a little higher. So the idea there is, you're with both those irons in the woods, is you're going to get a little bit more distance within the conforming within the rules of golf. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you've got a driver, you can only go so fast off the center of the face, and they're limited. So they have to find other ways to get distance out of that. So again, that becomes that option as far as optimizing that launch and looking at that model. I mean, I know a driver model that I'm playing with right now. Um, that's the case. It's longer, but it's not longer because of just pure ball speed. It's longer because of the control of the spin rates. The models that it was, the model that it had before, if you put the center of gravity back, it would just launch and you'd have too much spin.
Mm-hmm.
So now I can get the launch and the reduction of spin. So you go to the more forgiving model because maybe it's a little bit more stable as well, and you can get more out of it. So we're continuing to see that, and that's definitely a trend. We're seeing that in Cobra, we're seeing it in Zrixon, we're seeing it in Ping, we're seeing it in TaylorMade, we're seeing like Titleist. Like it's definitely a trend across there that we're seeing for sure.
Okay. Now, some of the new construction processes that are in place now. I mean, this is part of the evolution of golf equipment
Right,
manufacturing
for
too. Is
sure.
that the processes that they use to construct the equipment change, and what that can also do is change the feel, whether it's an
Hmm.
improved feel, change the sound. So the
Yep.
acoustics of the club, we always used to talk about drivers in particular. We used to talk about
Mm,
the sound, and some sounded like you were hitting a tin can. Some
yeah.
and some sounds appeal to people more so than other sounds. Someone's like, oh, I can't hit this thing, it sounds terrible, or
Yeah.
that feels this way coming off the club, or it has a dead feel to it. Or so what do you see there with respect to the construction process and what it's doing to the overall feel and acoustics of some of the equipment?
Yeah, and I think that's where the companies are, they're looking at carbon and the use of the carbon and changing the chassis that's around the carbon. They're using carbon in a lot of heads to change the weighting so they can put mass elsewhere, but at the same time it might dampen the noise, so they play around with different ways, different metals, different materials in the irons. I mean, for an example, the new Rixon irons use an iForge process, and they in their the ZXi7 iron, they're now using a even softer material than they used before, but they're doing the forging process and stuff with it so that they can, get the right sound, get the right feel. And again, they're just exploring that. I think what's neat is that more and more materials and processes are becoming available, and they're also becoming available at price that they can use that are still become affordable. Because a lot of times with manufacturers, they might look at it and go, yeah, we'd love to make that, but right now the process costs too much, the materials cost too much, and from a consumer standpoint, it's just not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see the precipice of 3D printing. We saw last year that Cobra did a 3D printed iron, and they
Mm-hmm.
did it in a limited edition. And I'm not going to give away too much, but let's just say that at some point, and this is exactly what we talked about last year, they're going to obviously be able to do that more and have that process available, but more in a consumer friendly price. Right. And I think those types of things is where, again, the next frontiers are. And even talking to ball manufacturers, I had a discussion with one last week in the morning, and we were chatting about some of the processes that they're going through in the materials. And I asked him that specific question. I said, are there things now that you can do that you maybe weren't capable in other iterations of those golf balls a few years ago? And he's like, clearly, yes. There's just things that we could not do because we just didn't have a material availability to get the characteristics that we want. And people have to realize these are not just lumps of metal on the end of sticks. These are highly engineered pieces of
Mm-hmm.
equipment, and that's what goes into the cost. And it's not just rebadging it and saying it's the same. And that's one of the things I hate online is people look at a picture of a club and they look at the back of it and they're like, oh, that's the same club as it was last year. They just put a new name on it and new paint. I guarantee you it's not
Yeah.
from an engine, and that's not coming from a media person that sits there and just talks to the marketing people. I spend a lot of time talking to the engineering people and seeing what they're doing for the changes. And while those changes may not be revolutionary, they're iterative. They're small gains all the time. They're always thinking, what am I going to do next? What can we do better for not only for the golfer itself, but they're looking for competitive advantages. They have to try and compete as a business and gain market share. One guy I was talking to last month, he just said, we're really small in the wedge market, but if we double it, which was only
Mm-hmm.
gaining like 1.5%, they
Yeah.
double their market, it's a successful year. But I mean,
Yeah.
they have to do some things to kind of be better, to do that, to gain it, because again, consumers have a perception of certain products being certain things. And you remember that obviously greatly from our retail days, where people would come in and just say, oh, I want this product because of this. And it's like, okay, it takes a while to change their perception of stuff. No different than any other type of business in the golf business.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what else do you see coming down the pipe? I mean, we're what, a week, 2 weeks out from
A week.
a
It's next
week out
week.
from the PGA
Yep.
show.
Yep.
There's I mean, obviously the emails and the social media
Press
stuff of
releases.
various
Yep.
products and press releases
Sure.
is at a high level right now. But what else do you see coming that
Hmm.
you can talk about that maybe even falls outside of the necessarily the woods, irons, wedges
Yeah.
category? I mean, I know that there's a lot of the companies, new wedges is a big thing.
Yeah, for
New
sure.
metal technologies
Yes, the
being used
Cleveland,
in wedges
yeah,
with
the
the
RTZ and the
RTZs.
Z Ally. Yep.
So there's something very new and different there, and I think
Yep.
we have something posted on flagstick.com
We
on
do.
those wedges right now.
Yep.
But outside that
Uh,
trend, the golf ball, the golf, like the shoe,
yeah.
like what else is coming? Like that.
So I'll mention one last thing in an equipment or a hard good side of it is putters. We're seeing
Mm-hmm.
a lot more modular putter
Okay.
options. So Mizuno, for an example, has their Metalcraft X putter, which is basically, when you're designing or getting to choose your putter, and Even Roll does this as well. You're basically choosing your hosel, you're choosing the back side of the face, you're getting your weighting in there. You got to remember from a cost perspective, a putter is an investment. Now it's not something that's $100, but on the other side of it, it's the club that you use the most. So we're definitely seeing manufacturers pay attention to that more. On the golf ball side of it, we're seeing a number of new golf balls where a lot of the manufacturers are chasing things from a trend standpoint. Titleist uses the term spin slope, and it's common across different manufacturers, is trying to get a greater separation of how a golf ball performs with wedge and a putter versus how it performs with the driver. So you got to remember that, when we're hitting a driver, we're trying to get maybe a little bit lower spin rates. With a wedge, we're trying for higher spin rates. So there's a differentiation there. And it's not just the ball. Obviously, the club affects that, the amount of, loft that you have, friction, speed, all sorts of different things. But they're trying to create a bigger separation there. So we're seeing that across the way. Same thing when we get to things like shoes. Spikeless is still the way for sure, but we're also seeing a case of more customization. We're going to see more of those trends of customization. Manufacturers are looking at that. If people want to show off their personality a little bit more in their shoes, so we're going to see a little bit more color, a little bit more color pops here and there. At the same time, we're also going to see a lot more classic stuff, but we're also going to see classic stuff that has a modern soul to it or whatever. So it's not the same old leather soled, classic shoe, but it's not uncommon now to see, 14-year-olds out there. We got to get you a new Tim Hortons cup, dude.
No, I said Tim Hortons. Listen, listen. I hate to interrupt your conversation. There is somebody that owns a Tim Hortons.
Yes, exactly.
Or works at a Tim Hortons or is involved in managing a Tim Hortons that listens to this podcast. Or
and
watches
we know an owner.
Here's the cup.
Several ones.
I refuse to promote Tim Hortons on this podcast by purchasing a new cup. So here's my cup. I will continue to use this cup on this podcast until a new cup shows up at my door. Simple as that.
I think you're forcing them to it because they just don't want you to use that. It's sort of like it's sort of like a reverse equipment contract. You're so bad. We don't
look how shiny the handle is.
Oh God, yeah. Would you have that sitting in your window with a plant?
No, it's in the cupboard.
2 years?
That's just the heat from it over time. Coffee's good inside it though, and I must say it's Tim Hortons coffee inside it.
Oh boy. All right. Yeah.
I do like my Tims.
Yeah. The other side of it, we're going to see more technology. I mean, that's going to continue as far as the pace. We're going to see more things with I would expect to see some different things that are more launch monitors, more personal launch monitors, higher technology, lower prices. We're going to see more app introductions. It's hard to imagine that there is gaps in the market still. I mean, there's so many products and things that are out there, but obviously there are. There always are. There's always the next great thing that comes along. So I would say we'll definitely see a fair bit of tech next week. And I know a couple of people that are going to the show specifically for that, to kind of look at that. So I think the biggest thing will be tech adoption that's available, that's consumer friendly. Because you know what? It's nice to have track bands and whatever the case. I mean, they cost a lot of money. They do. Money.
Yeah.
And the thing is that if you can come up with useful technology that is consumer friendly, it may not have all the features, right? But at least if it has features that are useful for consumer, that they're willing to invest in that. I think one of the ones that was really great was a device called Hack Motion, which it measures wrist angles. They have the same hardware, but they have different software packaging. So a coach can spend $1,000 and get full graphs and all sorts of different things. The general consumer can spend $300 and get the most important things that are available to them. So I think the flexibility within the technology, I think that will become more common. We've seen it. We've seen companies like Foresight, for an example. Obviously, they have their Quad and their Quad Max as their top launch monitors, but they've sort of dumbed it down a bit with a GC3, and then now they have this other Link model or whatever. So maybe it doesn't have all the features, but at least takes care of a lot of the main things that a lot of people will care about. And I think that's where technology can get better and get more use sort of indoors. So there's lots of great stuff as always. I mean, God, went to that first PGA show that I went to in 1992, and it's continued to just build and build and build, and the industry is, I think, bigger than ever, and I think there's still lots of opportunities for products.
There you go. Well, we dug into it a little bit.
So much
barely scratched the surface of what's coming out. So what we will say is this: we will continue with shows over the course of the next, probably the next month or so, at least,
with some equipment stuff,
with talking about some of the stuff that's that is obviously going to pop up in the media world, including on flagstick.com, where I guarantee it'll be lots. Every day there's going to be something else go up there. So
and watch for our social content on that as well. I mean, we try to get a lot of social content up there. We were talking a bit about that yesterday. I'm going to work on some first impressions videos, a few more things that kind of give some details, maybe a few things that you need to look at, and more than willing to accept and answer questions for Ask Flagstick. Sure. If you've got questions about a particular product that we can try and answer or get an answer to, we'll take that on as well. So don't be shy about signing up for the it's free to sign up for Flagstick. As far as the YouTube, just subscribe up there, check us out in our shorts or the videos themselves, and we'll have more content on there besides just flagstick.com.
Of course, definitely. So with that, we will we'll say goodbye for this week. There's lots more to come. So we want to thank, obviously, we want to thank our sponsors this week, Metcalf Golf Club, Celtic Golf Center, our presenting sponsor this week, Cobra Golf, and the new King Tech and King Tech X one length irons designed for a wide variety of handicaps. The King Tech and King Tech X irons deliver the ultimate combination of performance, power, forgiveness in every swing. Find a local fitter today for a better ball striking experience. Visit cobragolf.ca to learn more. Be sure to follow us across all social media networks at Instagram, X, and Facebook and TikTok. Subscribe to Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. And do not forget to hit up the YouTube channel, like us, and click the notification bell. Don't miss a single episode of this podcast. Or anything else for that matter. Get over to flagstick.com for more amazing golf content published every day, every hour of every day. Seems like something's going up right now.
It feels like.
Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, Flagstick Digest. Get all this stuff sent to your inbox 3 times a week. And we should also mention Scott's going to be starting shooting videos for the new off-season or winter Flagstick Golf, Flagstick Academy. Everything being shot at Celtic Golf Center in Kingston. So there'll be a whole new grouping of 24 tips coming out over the course of the next little while. So be sure to, you got to hit up the YouTube channel and get onto flagstick.com to find that stuff. So as always, we do appreciate you tuning in. But until next week, I'm Jeff Botter.
And I'm Scott McLeod.
Remember, always go for the stick.